one thing I would have done differently is kept track of my KPIs earlier, because I was spending at the time $50,000 a month on lead sources because I wanted to feed the team. They were hungry, everything was hot, and I didn't realize until 10 months down the road that after spending $500,000 in leads over 10 months, I'd only earned $100,000. So I lost $400,000 over that time just because I wasn't tracking. Money was just coming in. It was easy, right?
Matt, thank you for joining me. This is fun because we're doing it live from the Miami EXP Con. Normally you have to come hang out with me in Miami, but this is even better because it's in the live podcasting booth at EXP Con Miami. I really like to show the journey, right? Most of the time when you see an agent doing $30 to $50 million in production, there's a new agent who's like, I could never do that. How do I get there? So tell us how you got to real estate. What brought you to this industry?
Sure. Yeah. So my background, I was a fighter pilot in the Air Force. I flew fighter jets for 11 years. It was a wonderful time. I got accepted to the new Joint Strike Fighter programs, the new stealth fighter jet we had in the Air Force, in their Top Gun program, the very first Top Gun program they had.
Wow.
So super excited. I had 4 kids, beautiful wife, basically on top of the world at the time. And as I was getting ready for the Top Gun program, I got diagnosed with cancer, basically out of the blue. From there, a week later, had a heart complication where my heart was about to stop in a matter of 24 to 48 hours. Had to get heart surgery followed by chemotherapy. And in that transition of being on top of the world to transitioning to what's going to happen next, my friend introduced me to real estate. And so that was my introduction to real estate. He gave me the Purple Bible, Rich Dad, Poor Dad, and I was religiously converted to real estate basically from that book. And jumped into the investing side and jumped into the sales side basically simultaneously as I left the military. They eventually just basically gave me the boot because of the complications with medical stuff. And my first full year as a real estate agent, as an investor, just really jumped in feet first. And it was during the hot market, so timing was a good factor for me.
What year was that?
So 2020.
And before we go into that, how long was that process? I mean, you just kind of dropped some bombs and kind of moved across it was nothing.
Yeah, so it was about a 6-month journey of chemotherapy and surgeries before we realized kind of what my future was going to hold. The hope was that I'd get back into the jet and fly again, but in the end, I didn't make that decision. The Air Force decided to give me the boot, so it is what it is. I thought I was in a secure job, right? The military, they preach themselves as being the secure job. I get a retirement afterwards, and as long as I do what I need to do, I'll be set for life until you realize once you're not useful anymore, you kind of need to figure out what's going on. And so as I left the military, I only had $2,000 in my bank account. I had 4 kids. I didn't realize I was living paycheck to paycheck because it was so consistent. I didn't think about money in that sense. It was just, we were surviving comfortably. And I was just really excited. So my very first opportunity in real estate as I left was my first investment. Again, very little money in my bank account, but I was really excited. I learned a lot about real estate investing. When I was flying jets, I was in a top secret vault, secured vault, reading about our enemy's tactics and our current tactics, 12 to 14 hours a day, reading about these tactics. But then all of a sudden, I find myself in a hospital for 12 to 14 hours a day, and I was reading real estate tactics now. It was all about real estate knowledge, real estate tactics. And so I jumped into my first real estate investment. I didn't have any money, so I had to leverage other people's money to jump into that first one and started to sucsucceed from there. It worked out.
What did that first deal look like?
So it was a flip. It was a classic flip, the first one. I was networking a ton in the local area. I was the bald cancer dude that everyone kind of knew, and so could have stood out that way. And found the deal. I was posting on Bigger Pockets and these other forums online, and someone who was in Hawaii, a more expensive area, they said, "Hey, I have $50,000 to invest if you want to do something with it, because I can't do that in Hawaii. It doesn't give me anything out here." I said, "Sweet." And I put another video on YouTube. It was about how you can use your self-directed IRA to invest in real estate. And I had 100 views. Went viral. Not really at all. But I had the one view that mattered, to where someone who had $300,000 in his IRA, he said, "Hey man, I like what you're posting. Here's $300,000. Let me know what you want to do with it." And so I brought their money together. I took $100 of my money to start a business bank account, $150 to start my first LLC. They wired the money in, I ran the deal, and we ended up making $50,000. And I was an agent at the time, so I made my extra 3% on the listing as well. So it was great. And I was kind of pushed the I believe button from there, and
And you got the lead from a wholesaler? Where did it come from?
Yeah, networking in the local area. I just attended as many belly-to-belly networking local events as I could. So that was my goal there. But then from there, it transitioned to sales as well. I jumped into the sales side. I really loved the sales side. And as I was networking with investors, I realized if I have an investor who I know what they want, it's not just they're going to buy one house every 5 to 7 years. They might buy 10 houses this year. And so that's how sales really expanded for me was with the working with investors. So that first year as a full-time agent, I sold $50 million my first year.
Oh my gosh!
Yeah, so it really worked out really well to work with investors in an area that they were actively acquiring.
And it was also good timing, right?
Timing was huge. Yeah, we were in the Panhandle, so short-term rentals were huge at the time. And so when you're selling $1 million properties, you only need to sell 50 of them to hit 50 million. But still, it was absolutely wonderful, and kind of just went from there.
And so, went from there is kind of open-ended. So, did you build a team? Where did you progress from there?
Sure. On the investing side, over those next 2.5 years, I ended up acquiring 750 units through short-term rentals, mobile home.
You acquired?
Yes. Yeah. So it was a combination of long-term rentals, short-term rentals, mobile home parks, RV parks, apartment complexes, and it kind of grew from there. And then on the sales side, as sales got busier, naturally, I started getting more and more leads, just referrals coming in that I just couldn't handle them all. And I hated to see a lead come in that I just couldn't service properly. And so that's how the team kind of started naturally growing. It grew to one agent at a time, then bringing the coordinator, and then eventually we had 35 agents on the team.
Wow.
Everyone was doing really well. It was a production team that was crushing.
From start to when you grew to 35 agents, how much time went by?
It's about 1.5 years. Yeah.
That's super fast.
Yeah, it was great. Very, very exponential growth there early on. It was going very well up until the interest rates.
Until it wasn't.
Yeah, until it wasn't, right? And so I think the big thing for me was learn to flex, learn to figure out, all right, what is working and what's not working anymore, so we can figure out where we can focus on operations to succeed.
And what did you shrink the business down to?
Right now, it's a coordinator and one full-time agent. We have a handful of part-time agents that help as they can, but it's really me and one other agent at this point.
And so, what was the lesson learned there in that transition?
Like I said, I think it's really just figuring out. One thing I would have done differently is kept track of my KPIs earlier, because I was spending at the time $50,000 a month on lead sources because I wanted to feed the team. They were hungry, everything was hot, and I didn't realize until 10 months down the road that after spending $500,000 in leads over 10 months, I'd only earned $100,000. So I lost $400,000 over that time just because I wasn't tracking. Money was just coming in. It was easy, right? And so when you lose $400,000 after you're looking back, you're like, okay, maybe I need to be a little bit more specific, count the beans a little bit more before I make these decisions.
And so what does the business look like today after right-sizing it?
Sure. So again, still focused on investors, but a lot of investors have kind of been pencils down in the acquisition side. But now they're looking more on the dispo side, and they're thinking, like, hey, is now a good time to sell? And so leveraging a lot of the things that you've been integral and really helping is the IIS services with EXP has been huge. I think right now I have 40 or 50 listings in Tampa alone just from IIS. And so working with investors, working with the services we have at EXP has been monumental, really, to help transition from being mainly 95% buyer agent acquiring properties for investors to now helping those investors dispo their properties on the backside.
And so going into 2025, what are you excited about?
I'm excited to this institutional investment services has got me really excited. As much as I work, I love working with multiple people. Business is so much easier when I'm dealing with like 1 or 2 or 3 clients. And so if you have a handful of clients you can work with that can bring in most of the business, I think that's absolutely huge. I mean, John Scalia, top agent in the company, he's really kind of a friend of mine now, but also he's been my idol since I saw him on stage a couple of years ago. Man, that guy, how's he doing it?
Do you know that that's exactly the business I ran when I was in sales?
I had no idea. No. So you were all in institutional.
So I got licensed early, and then I built a team. And after the financial crisis, I got into REO, and I built this machine that serviced institutional customers. But as the market corrected, I was like, I built this machine. It's like a very specific race car, right?
Yep.
And some cars are good for drag racing, other cars are good to go in a circle, but you don't take a Ferrari on an off-road track.
Sure.
So what I discovered was that there was, no matter the market cycle you're in, there's typically some form of institutional corporate customer that needs your services.
Yeah, I definitely agree. And you can see the way institutions are with BlackRock and everyone else buying up a ton of properties, but now they're figuring out where they are in their business cycle of dispoing or even acquiring more. And it's interesting to see how each of these clients work, because I know you've been personally integral in bringing these multiple companies on, and every one of them runs differently. They have different requirements they're looking for. Effectively, they're all looking for the same service, but trying to figure out how we could fit in to really be beneficial to them. And then for me personally, I want to make sure I'm standing out as the individual agent to be, the one they lean on most. I want them to know my name personally. So when they think about something, they have another portfolio, they want to throw it to me. So for me and my team.
You're now in Tampa, though, different.
Correct.
And what took you from Destin to Tampa?
We were in the military for 11 years. My wife said, "We're not being told where to live anymore." I said, "Yeah, I guess we can move wherever you want." And so we have family in Tampa, so we ended up moving in Tampa. It's a bigger city, and it just offers a little bit more for the kids.
So since we're talking about this, and it's something I grew up doing, I'll give you a tactic that works pretty well.
Sure.
So with the skill sets you have, I would go after all of the local investors who do direct marketing. Sure. So think about the radio, TV, like mass mailers. And the script you need to go to them with is, how would you like to zero base your marketing expenses on a monthly basis?
Okay.
Everybody says yes to that.
Okay, sure. Yeah.
And then when you do is you go sit down with them and understand what they do. What you say is, show me your funnel for motivated sellers. And it's very common. But at some point in that decision tree, because most of the conversion ratios are like 2 or 3%.
Yeah.
There is 96 to 97% that's untapped.
Yep.
So what you say to them is, let me, whatever decision point you feel that's a dead lead, send it to me, and I'll give you the scripts in your process. Go, hey, Mr. and Mrs. Seller, if this price doesn't work for you, let me have Matt and his team call you, so they can bring the house to market in the traditional sense.
Sure.
And then you pay them a success fee upon closing. And if you do it correctly, you can probably cover their $10, $20, $50, $100,000 marketing expense through referral fees. You just need somebody on their team to get licensed, hang in with EXP in your downline.
Yep.
And it's probably one of the best ways to increase transaction count without spending a single dollar in dollars up front.
Oh yeah, I've used that tactic for wholesalers in the recruiting side, in the agent attraction side, because these wholesalers are leaving a lot of money on the table when they're just presenting themselves as just wholesalers, not really an all-inclusive real estate solution. I've never really pitched it that way from just bringing the leads in, though. I've always just say, hey, join the team, be a business partner together, and let me show you how you can leverage this. But that's fantastic.
Because the bigger players in most markets are spending real dollars, right?
Oh yeah. Oh for sure. Yeah.
And it's untapped. It normally just goes in the trash.
Yeah, which is sad. It's sad to see leads die. Nobody. Wants
I'm in my home market. I represented a customer that did $100,000 a month in TV spending.
Yeah. I'm not surprised at that, right? Like if they're getting the ROI on it, and most of these guys, especially wholesalers, they're professional marketers. That's effectively that is their expense, is the marketing piece. And so, if we can come at it with the angle of no marketing, I can definitely see that being a great lead source.
Let me pay for all your marketing expenses. That's not a script that most people say no to.
Yeah, no, absolutely not.
And so, without having a crystal ball,
sure,
knowing that there's a lot of uncontrollables and interest rates and supply and demand and everything else that you can't control.
Sure.
What are you most focused on?
Right now, I'm a very opportunistic investor. So on the investing side, we're selling a couple of our apartment complexes right now. So I've some in Alabama and Mississippi that we're offloading. Other ones we're refinancing. And really just focusing on core operations, where before, as an investor, I was focused on unit count. I said, I want to get to 1,000 units. I want to get to 10,000 units, because there's a pride point really more than like a cash flow or long-term plan. And more units to me kind of means more headache if you don't buy it right. And so we've had some sour deals that just are painful, and we're still kind of working through some of those. And so for me, it's really conservative underwriting on the investment side and making sure I take advantage of the opportunities that come my way. I recently bought a nut company as well. So I bought a 99-year-old pecan business as an example, just because the numbers worked out so well. And
who's going to operate that for you?
We have employees that are already in place there. It was your classic baby boomer that was just tired of the business. It's a 3-generational business, and bought it with seller financing. And it's just the numbers worked out really, really well. It's also a real estate play, though, because we're buying it with the acreage that we were ideally turn into a strip center. So it's just, for me, very, very opportunistic on the investment side. So crystal ball wise, just really underwriting as conservatively as possible, to where I'm thinking less on ROI, but more on like return on time as well as a factor in there. I'm trying to create the lifestyle that I can be flexible with doing things that I want to do, not doing, handling headaches that I don't want to have to deal with.
And for the agents that don't own real estate, which to me is always crazy, right? Like this is the business that we're in. Yeah. But how did you go from buying one property to apartment buildings? Like that's a huge leap for most people.
Yeah, education was the first step for sure. A lot of people just are scared because they don't know. Ignorance is just, is one big hurdle that people have to overcome. They have to learn. And then beyond that, I was just networking. And so networking is how I started to learn and connect. My deal sourcing has always been through networking, talking to people, letting them know I'm an investor, and they bring me the deals. Even after speaking at an event yesterday, I had 4 people message me, I got a deal in Chicago, let's partner up. So I've always been a networking kind of deal source. That's been my thing. But from financially, the big thing for me in an investment, you need 3 things. You need knowledge, you need the time, and you need the money. And as an investor agent, I realized I only need 2 of those 3 things, and I can always outsource the other. If I have the time and the knowledge, and it's truly a good deal, I can outsource the money. I can use other people's money to take down the deal. If I have money and I have the knowledge but I don't have the time, I can find somebody who's willing to spend their time to be the partner on the deal who's going to spend the time. So that's kind of my mindset going forward, is focusing on ROI is important, but ROT as well, so I can craft a lifestyle that I really want, not a lifestyle that I'm kind of gelling myself into.
So you said you have some stuff in other states.
Sure, yeah.
I think there's 2 different schools of thought on that. I know investors who basically need to be able to drive there, and I think I had a mentor once call it the foot in the ass rule. I need to be able to go drive over there and put my foot in someone's ass if need be. Yeah. Versus I know some other successful investors that own stuff all over the country.
Yeah.
How do you think through that?
I've never done a deal by myself. I've always had a partner in a deal. And so if I'm going to do a deal somewhere else, I need to have a partner who is foot in the ass partner, if you will. All right. So I need someone who I can trust, that's local, that knows the area, that is going to be able to personally make an impact on that if needed. So that's my kind of litmus test. I do need to have someone local. I don't necessarily need to be local though. So yeah, I'm happy to expand at wherever, as long as the deals make sense and I understand the risks, and the risks and the rewards, kind of balance themselves out. That's really never been a personal limitation for me.
So I was once on a panel about investing, and a very braggadocious young man was on there, and he talked about all the successes. Yeah. And during Q&A, somebody asked him about which deals went bad.
Yeah, yeah.
And he said he'd never had a deal go bad, and I actually laughed out loud, audibly.
Yeah.
And I just said, you just haven't done enough deals.
Yeah.
So what are some of those painful lessons learned?
Yeah, we brought this in the panel yesterday, actually, with a real estate investing panel, because everyone's throwing out numbers in this panel, right? Oh, I did this deal, I flipped, I made $200,000. This deal, oh, that's it, I made $250,000 in a wholesale deal. That's great. But then you see, I look in the crowd and I see everyone with their eyes wide open, like, I'm going to make so much money in real estate, and it's possible to make a lot of money. But I raised my hand. I was like, all right, guys, I got to show you the other side of the business as well. My second flip, first flip went great, made roughly $50,000 in that flip. First flip, second flip, I was the king. I knew how to flip a house now. It was awesome. So I went in there, limited due diligence period, didn't really fully inspect it, and thinking I knew everything at that point. I had already done one flip. And so jumped in. In the end, it was during COVID when everyone's beaches got locked down. But in the end, we lost $30,000 in that second flip. So that was lesson learned pretty early of don't get complacent. Even though I shouldn't even been complacent at that point, but that was my big lesson learned there. Fast forward to some of the bigger deals, as people want to get into these multifamily opportunities. I entered an opportunity where they were raising $6.5 million for a deal in Austin, Texas. We were buying a 200-unit apartment complex in Austin, Texas. And that deal, they had raised $6 million, and then they needed the last $500,000 to get it across the finish line. And the current general partners just couldn't do it. So they reached out to me. It was like a friend of a friend of a friend who reached out to me and said, hey, man, I need $500,000. Can you help raise this last $500,000? Said, yeah, let me check out the deal. Flew out to Austin, checked it out. Location was good. It was Austin. This is 2 years ago, early 2022. The Tesla factory was about to be built. So many people moving from California to Austin. There was a lot of good macroeconomics. The underwriting of the deal was a little bit tighter than I liked personally, as far as their assumptions they used. But I kind of leaned on, well, it's Austin. It should work out appreciation. And the big kicker here is I joined as a minority general partner. So minority meaning I didn't have operational impact, even if I wanted to. I could jump and scream all I wanted to, but I couldn't impact the outcome. So I raised the $500,000. You probably see where this is going, but
I'm smiling because I've been in that situation.
Yeah. So within a year, the deal was foreclosed on. So lost $500,000 of my investors' money. The entire $6.5 million disappeared.
Somebody got a good deal.
My investors so anytime I've lost money, my investors have been repaid. So that $30,000 in that second flip that I lost, that money, I personally paid back that money out of my own coffer, paid those investors back. And those investors have come back and paid multiple hundreds of thousands of dollars in deals because now they trust that I'm there for them. Same thing with this one. The $500,000 of my investors lost is being repaid. The other $6 million, that's gone. Those investors are not getting paid back. I talked to my general partners. The other general partners are like, yeah, we can't pay them back, so we're just going to tell them sorry. And so, yeah, you can be burned for sure, but my big takeaway is always protecting the investor's money as much as possible because that is the lifeblood of the business, is other people's money. For me, like I said, I always leverage other people's money in my deals. So it sucks, but that's how you learn and grow, hopefully.
Got it. Any parting thoughts for someone who is thinking of adding investing as one of the verticals they focus on?
I mean, as a real estate agent, like you said, I feel like it's silly not to invest in real estate as an agent. It's almost like, are you going to buy steaks from a vegan? Probably not, right? Like it just doesn't make sense if they're not actively doing the things that they're trying to sell. So for me, it just really makes sense. And so it helps you personally. You're growing your wealth. A lot of agents don't have an exit strategy. EXP is fantastic. It has this multiple streams of income outside of just the basic commission. I don't want to just lean on just EXP, though. I love the EXP income, and it's fantastic for me, but I want to create as many sources of income as possible. So if and when I want to get out of sales and production, I absolutely love it now, so I'm not trying to get out. I'm trying to sell 500 homes next year, and that's my goal. But I want to be able to say no, and when I want to, I want that flexibility to get out.
I actually even tell agents whether it's rev share income or commission income, I would still take that and buy real estate with it.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, the other big piece is the tax implications that you're able to save so much more. It's not just what you make; it's what you actually keep at the end of the day. And last story before we part, I know you're trying to end up, is last year, my partner, a friend of mine, we sold roughly the same. I sold roughly 50 million. He sold roughly 60 million in sales. And we're talking about taxes in the day. Man, how was your tax bill? Well, he's like, my CPA just hit me. I just paid my taxes. Like, what was it? He's like, I paid $450,000 in taxes. Ouch. He's like, how much you pay? I was like, well, I paid $2,500. My kids actually paid more than me because they're on salary and they had their self-employment taxes. So he's like, dude, no way. So I showed him the tax bill. I showed him the email. He's like, how do you do that? Dude, you got to buy real estate. You have to buy real estate. And it's such a vehicle for wealth and for opportunity down the road that it's hard to pass up.
Well, congratulations. I'm excited to see. I mean, you've been in the industry a relatively short amount of time.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
And it sounds like you've already done some amazing things. So I appreciate your leadership, and I'm excited to see where it goes.
Thanks, Leo. Appreciate it.